Welcome into another Roar the Lions UK podcast, episode 106, Forgetting Aaron Rodgers. My name's Matthew Turner, alongside co-hosts Stephen Collins, Ryan McCluskey, and going to be joined in a moment by Tom Wilkinson. How you doing, boys?
Can we call the podcast something else, Aaron Rodgers, that also begins in F?
Does it end in King?
Possibly.
Yeah, we could do that.
Or just fuck off, Aaron Rodgers. What about that? Just fuck off.
I mean, thank God we aren't monetized, because we'd have lost that by now already. But I don't know, the idea of fucking Aaron Rodgers is worse than just forgetting him, to be honest.
It's all right. I saw someone today on Twitter make a mock of him in a Lions jersey. I felt like telling them to fuck off.
Yeah.
we don't want no anti-vaxxer Lions. Oh wait, we've already got anti-vaxxer Lions.
That's a hard pass from me.
Yeah. I just don't want to speak about him, but I'm gonna, because we have to. So, because this is a Packers versus Lions preview show. So we're going to start off with the news as always and then dive into the Packers preview. But let's start off by talking about our Discord channel, always active talking about fantasy at this time of the year. Everyone's just finished their championship games, apart from me that's got 1 week left in one of my leagues, because for some reason, week 18, they decided would be the second part of the finals. Congratulations to them. That really sucks. But anyway, Discord channel, really active. Hit us up on Twitter for a link to that. It'd be great to see you in there. College Football Podcast was on yesterday. Ryan, what did we talk about?
We talked about the remainder of the bowl games, the Senior Bowl lineup that was announced ahead of the game, which is the All-Star game where the NFL coaches coach, and we looked at who has made the FCS and FBS national championships, which will be this weekend at the end of the month as well. So we're going to probably donate a whole show to the FBS championship at some point in the near future.
Yeah, no, it sounded like a really, really good show, and I need to watch that through. I mean, we are getting towards our Super Bowl now, guys. You know, we're only 3.5 months away from the draft. Senior Bowl, one of those premier events that can't be missed in the run-up to that, especially with the second overall pick. So don't miss the Roar the Lions College Football Podcast. Please like the video, sub to the pod on YouTube and Twitch if you can. Follow our socials, that would be great. And don't forget about Lions Nation Unite, the app where you can find all your favourite hobby content, people just like us talking about the Lions all in one place. Really, really good stuff. Right, let's talk about the news. And the really big news of the week is that we've made a signing, boys. Fantastic news. Tackle Darren Paulo has been re-signed to the practice squad. Yay.
I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced he's a real person. No one's ever seen him.
No,
I think it's a pseudonym.
He's just a high Scrabble score.
I think
it's Stan Skipper in disguise.
Is it not Dan Campbell in disguise? It could be Dan Campbell. Anyway, let's welcome in Tom. How you doing, man?
Good, thanks. Sorry for the late arrival. Stepping into the virtual pod studio. I like it.
You look like you were in one with the blurred background. I like it. Let's move on swiftly from the huge news story of the week and actually into something far, far bigger. Tackles Taylor Decker and Penei Sewell, defensive end Austin Bryant, all have gone to the COVID reserves. We have activated 5 off bit, though. Khalif Raymond and Josh Reynolds, Halil Pulavati-Vaitai, Brock Wright and Michael Brockers all activated from COVID reserve. Getting some healthy, getting some unhealthy, potentially in places that we really couldn't afford to against a Packers team with the third highest ranked pressure rate in the NFL per PFF. Using tackles not ideal, boys.
I mean, I think Decker's caught that touchdown pass and he's spent the weekend in the club, and hence he's got COVID. He's got to have been absolutely flexing on that touchdown all weekend.
I mean, did anyone notice that Matt Nelson didn't catch COVID? Because I noticed that.
That's not the only thing he couldn't catch.
Oh,
He caught a swift right hook from his wife, I heard. Backhand when he came through the door.
Probably dropped a few tens of thousands of dollars with that. He might have had an incentive just in there as a tackle. If you catch a touchdown, you get paid a fat wad. So
That should be a fixed incentive in every O-line contract that if they catch a touchdown, they get some kind of bonus. I'm massively for that.
Yeah,
100%.
get them training catching the bloody ball. I mean, what did they do as young lads trying to play the game at like 6, 7, 8 years old? Did they just run with it in their hands, or were they trying to catch it from their dad or something? Because I swear, like, catch was the one thing I bloody did as a child. Like, that was the easiest catch. What are you doing? Anyway.
It was quite funny. He was absolutely flossing all over his Instagram. It was pretty funny. Like, it was very tongue in cheek, but it was pretty funny, the stuff that he put up on his Instagram. I think he described his butter soft hands.
when you then saw the stats of like Taylor Decker has as many touchdown catches as Kenny Golladay and Eric Ebron combined this year and stuff like that. I mean, just love it.
I'd actually forgotten Ebron existed.
Yeah, I'm amazed he had any. Apparently he has one. So
okay.
I mean, even when Ebron left here, he was a liability always, as you know, he always was here too. But he was a touchdown monster for a while, just kind of in the red zone catching stuff, and he parlayed that into a few gigs. But he's really gone to crap now, has he? I mean, I guess it's Pat Frymuth's role to lose now in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Frymuth looks decent.
He's finally turned to stone as Ebron. It started with the hands. I think it was a curse as a child. He grew up his arms and like Medusa. He's like a statue somewhere at Heinz Field.
Oh, Ash will enjoy your Medusa reference as a Greek myth nerd. So love it. Right, let's move on. And, you know, something that came out, I think today, maybe yesterday, but really, really exciting to hear. Whatever you think about this, but obviously, the Lions 2-13-1 have not had the best season. They have one of the worst ranked defenses in the league, which I think is unfair given what we've had to deal with and, you know, the quality of the players on show and the volume of touches they've had to suffer because of how poor the offense has been. But Aaron Glenn, I think we all think, has done exceptionally well with this group, and people around the league have started to notice. And actually, he was asked in his presser, you know, how do you feel about being a head coaching candidate around the league this off-season? And he said, and I quote, "I just want to be the best coordinator the Lions ever had. That's all I think about." And for me, I think most coordinators in his spot play it coy and kind of go, oh, I don't want to talk about that. I'm just focused on the Lions, which is kind of like this horrible non-answer of, well, I'm interested if they're interested sort of thing. Glenn to come out and say this, I mean, for me, still says just about as much as the nothing answer because he's not committed to anything. But it's refreshing to hear that someone actually wants to be here, and the consistent story of all the coaches really buying in seems to filter all the way down. It really warmed my heart to hear. I don't know how you guys think about this.
I'll say it was really nice to hear. I appreciate the sentiment. Obviously, a coach is here until they're not here. So the moment he gets a head coach job, I will be all on board with it. I'll take it with a pinch of salt. It's a nice, warming thing you like to hear. It's nice to hear that someone just likes to be here. Even though the things aren't going well on the field, it's nice to see that no tensions have risen in the locker room. There's no animosity. There's still good vibes there. Everyone's still there for one another. And he's basically confirming he'll be back next year for me. I feel like that is at least me saying I will be here next year because I want to be part of turning this ship round. But when those likely head coach calls come maybe 2 years' time, if he takes one, I won't begrudge him of it. I won't be bitter. I'll just be sad to see him go, but I'm just going to enjoy him while he's here because he's doing really well with what he's got to work with. And Pleasant is going to be working nicely underneath him as well. I feel like the moment Glenn goes, we've got someone hopefully to just step right into his shoes and nothing will change.
Yeah, and that's the way a good organisation works in terms of that succession plan, and that's kind of what you would want Brad Holmes to kind of be building. I think as well from an Aaron Glenn point of view, there is going to be a lot of coach vacancies this season, but when you look at some of the shortlists for, like, you know, a couple of the names that have come up already, there's a lot of people ahead probably in the queue at the moment of Aaron Glenn. I think Ryan will probably be able to say a bit more definite, but I think there's probably at least one or two college coaches that could be heading to the NFL this season, or certainly like the hyped names anyway. But there's also there's people like Dan Quinn. Are they going to get back into a head coach role after kind of successful period back as a coordinator? And I would say it's probably 1, maybe 2 seasons early. I think if we finish 8-9 or 9-8 next season and the defense is like top 12, then that's probably when Glenn's got a better chance of starting to attract attention for those roles. But it's probably a bit early considering. And I'm glad, because coaching is not a swift turnaround business. A good coach takes 2-3 years to mature the players underneath him, and we shouldn't expect miracles. Even the start of next season, he's going to probably take a couple of years to really gel that group into what he wants.
The only thing I'd say is he got a head coaching interview last year. Was it with the Jets, I want to say? Yeah. And I feel like his reputation is only going to be higher. Even after the season, with the record that Lions have had, there are smart people in the league. They're going to have seen what he's done. I'd be very surprised if he didn't get an interview this year. I agree. I doubt he's probably going to get one this year. And yeah, similar to what you guys said, I hope he doesn't, from a selfish perspective, and I definitely won't begrudge him when he hopefully does get one. But I really want to see what he can do with more of a full strength secondary next year. I mean, I was very much pro Okudah coming out of year one. I hated the whole he's a bust thing. I didn't expect him to set the world on fire this year, but I wanted to see promising signs. Obviously, we lost that year. Now, if he can come back healthy, seeing what he's done with Jerry Jacobs, Parker, all these guys, I think him getting his hands on Okudah next year is almost what I would be most excited about keeping hold of him for.
I mean, for me, I look at some of the guys that are rumoured for head coaching positions at the moment. I think number one, probably around the league, is potentially Doug Peterson. And I think, well, okay, he's won a Super Bowl, but you have a look at what happened to him when Frank Reich left, and you think, well, who was the brains behind what happened there, really? Like, once Reich left, it all fell to pieces. Now, you do see that with coaches sometimes, that fatigue sets in, and I think that's what's happened with Mike Zimmer. Kind of great start and has just fallen away slowly. But I don't think that Peterson's got it. I just don't. I watch him as a coach. I look at the concepts that he tries to instill, and I just don't think he has it. And if you have a look at the other guys in there, Jim Caldwell, steady pair of hands, thought of fondly by the Lions fan base, but I don't think anyone was aghast at the fact that he fired. He was just someone going to take you to a point. And that point would be good. That point would be 7th seed every year, as it is now in the NFL, and that's fine. But Byron Leftwich or Eric Bieniemy, and I look at Aaron Glenn, he's only got 1 year as a coordinator and 1 year calling plays. But Dan Campbell didn't have any. And if you have a look at the way Aaron Glenn conducts himself in interviews, the way he talks to his players, if I was a GM, I would be considering him very highly compared to any of those guys I just mentioned. So I don't think it's going to happen because it's a bad Lions team and that's just going to work against him. But I would do it, and if he does get a job, I'd be the first one congratulating him because I think he kind of deserves it a little bit.
I think it's all about situational appointments. Like, there's going to be certain franchises with a coaching vacancy this season, and because of the circumstances of where the franchise is in terms of their rebuild or in terms of their draft position or in terms of kind of their arc of performance, no coach under the age of 50 is going to get a job there. They're going to want someone that's got 10 years experience in the league just because of, like, as I said, the situation of that franchise. But there will be, I would imagine, for example, Pete Carroll goes in Seattle. They're not going to appoint in Seattle another 60 plus coach. They are going to want to have someone in Seattle that probably, is a young up and coming coordinator that's going to be there like 10 years and rebuild that franchise. So I think it just depends on where those kind of vacancies fall and how many other kind of young prospects are, like I said, maybe just a bit ahead of him in terms of experience and also production, because, he's the Lions defense has improved and is doing good things, but it's, it's not a top 10 defense, is it? Let's face it, guys. I think we all know that.
I think Jim Caldwell was scheduled for his interview in Jacksonville today. I think it was. I think he is a great choice for them because after you've had the whirlwind of Urban Meyer, you kind of just want, like, Urban Meyer's like Red Bull and cocaine, whereas Jim Caldwell's kind of like chamomile tea. Like, you kind of just want to take it down a bit, don't you? He is a safe pair of hands. And like, you've got a quarterback that needs nurturing. They need someone to just go in there and steady the ship. And steady the ship he will do. I always like Jim Caldwell, especially as a person. It didn't work out in the end because we couldn't get to the second gear. We were staying in third gear. But right now, I think he's kind of what they need. Someone to just reset the balance there and get the bad taste out of the mouth.
I'd be amazed if Byron Leftwich doesn't get the Jags job.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, he was selected by them in the draft, drafted by them. He's got the history with them. He's an offensive coordinator, and they've got, Trevor Lawrence. I'd be amazed if that, if that doesn't add up to Leftwich getting that job.
Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be an interesting one as all of this develops. I mean, we are, not very far away from Black Monday. So it's all going to kick off next week. Can't wait to see it. Let's finish off our little discussion news segment by talking about someone that we're going to talk about a little bit later on as well. In Aaron Rodgers. Hate to do it, but it's got to be done. There was a Chicago beat writer who basically went in on him, 2-footed lunge. If you don't do soccer, you'll need to look up that term, but it's an egregious thing you do when you're trying to injure someone potentially. And he just basically said, I'm not voting for that piece of shit because he didn't care about his team when they needed him the most, and I'm not voting for an arsehole for MVP. You may have seen the reply. If you haven't, there's a really good bit on it on the Pat McAfee show that you might want to listen to. But effectively, Rodgers comes out in a press conference and is asked about it. And he said, this guy doesn't know me. He's never had dinner with me, because that's the barometer of whether you're an arsehole or not. And he says he just wants to vote for the most valuable vaccinated player, which is the greatest piece of straw manning I've seen. It was artistic in its bullshit. Did you guys see the interview? What did he make of the greatest of all fucking arseholes?
I'm amazed he went in so hard in his interview, actually, in terms of coming back at him. I mean, there's two things at play. Well, there's a number of things at play. First of all, he is an arsehole. From my point of view, that doesn't affect whether he's the MVP or not. Like, it just doesn't. And so whilst it's been a weird week for kind of week 18 or traditionally final week of the season news with the whole Antonio Brown thing. And obviously this as well. I don't really see it as much of a story. I think the guy, he came out and said something stupid. Rodgers went hard back at him. He then apparently apologized today, but didn't really apologize. And it's a bit like, it's all crazy, but it should not impact MVP votes. I'm amazed that an MVP voter, which I believe is only 50, came out and said something like that anyway. I feel like that
publicly.
that is not the publicity that whoever sets that panel is looking for.
Yeah.
I'll start with saying I don't like Antonio Brown. I don't like Aaron Rodgers. But when it comes to voting for who is going to win an award, I just look at what they do on the field. This does not change anything for me. Aaron Rodgers is probably leading the way. Like, the numbers are ridiculous. Like, look at over the last 2-3 years, there's so few interceptions. No one protects the ball as well as he does. No one moves the ball down the field like he does. He just ages like fine wine. And I don't let my personal bias towards him being a total douchebag make me realise that he should win the MVP. If they have a good run in the postseason, which I expect them to do, he will wrap up the MVP, especially next week, even if he plays a half or not. But he's going to be a shoo-in. I think you've just got to look at the body of the work and for once, just put your personal opinions aside. And I agree with Tom, when you're a panelist, obviously with the college football playoff, they've got a committee of 5-6 people. They say stupid things. It brings a bad omen on them. It's not good publicity. It doesn't look great when you're going out and attacking people because then it makes it like they have agendas against certain people as well. So now people are going to be like, well, this is biased. So should have just kept his mouth shut and said it after he won the award.
I mean, I think I wrote in my pre-season preview for Roar the Lions about the Packers that Rodgers demonstrates pretty much all of the traits of a sociopath, and I just absolutely despise the guy as a Lions fan, and also as someone who I would like to consider myself a decent human being. He's just a dick, and I hate the way that the media and McAfee just absolutely fawn over him. And I think this is probably like a sports writer who's not in the loop, who's just hitting out, but Rodgers shouldn't be punching down in return. However, having said all that, Rodgers, even for me, Rodgers has got to be one of the top 3 candidates for MVP, because he's just been sickeningly good again. You look at the Packers' record, 13-3 for the last 3 seasons. That's an incredible record in the NFL. Obviously, hilariously, there's no Super Bowl in those 3 years, and I really hope, and I will come on to this later, but I don't think there's going to be a Super Bowl for them from this year. But you can't argue that on the field, which is what the MVP award is about, this isn't a Walter Payton award. This is the MVP, and Rodgers has been sickeningly good.
Yeah, there's no arguing that he is, when you talk about value, there's no argument for me that Cooper Kupp is more valuable to a team than Aaron Rodgers is. It's just not close. Like, Kupp, Stafford has done this sort of thing with a receiver before. Does that mean Kupp is great or not? I don't know. I saw that argument before, and I was like, is this an argument Stafford is good? No, but also, whatever. But take Rodgers out of that side, put Love in, it's probably a fairly weak team. I don't know. I don't know how you guys feel. Obviously, Aaron Jones is great, and A.J. Dillon's great, and Devontae Adams is the best receiver in the league, and Rodgers is there too. Now, defense has been a lot better than it has been in previous years, with a defensive coordinator who, as we all know, went 0-16 with the Lions, so how the bloody hell did that happen? But I think it's a team that consistently overperforms because it just always believes it's going to win with him at the helm. Like, his presence elevates that team more than anything else. And when he goes, I really think they'll regress hard.
If this award was MV wide receiver, who's the best wide receiver in the league? Cooper Kupp's, between him and Jamar Chase, is absolutely probably Cooper Kupp in terms of just volume and consistency. But the wide receiver doesn't. If there's no offense and there's no QB, then the wide receiver doesn't win matches in the NFL.
Indeed.
We've seen Jordan Love as well this year. He played that one game, and he looked like a toddler in a nappy, shuffling around like in his mum's high heels. It looked like he was playing adult-like dress-up. He was useless. And if that's any indictment of how that trade-off is going to be, like, I worry for their future. I really do. But on the contrary,
in his nappy, walking around in his mum's high heels,
like a rug rat. He looked like a rug rat trying to be an adult playing football. He just did not look ready or right to be out there.
But for anyone listening in their car, we will not be paying out any insurance claims for all the cars that have just gone right off the road thinking of that. Yeah.
Oh man, I'm now just thinking of the Rugrats.
Quick sidebar other than Rugrats. We talked about off-field versus on-field, and I had an interesting conversation last week talking about this. One word answer. Antonio Brown doesn't play another snap in the NFL. Is he a Hall of Famer?
Yes.
No.
I say yes. But yeah, it's for me, it's just on field. He was one of, if not the best receiver in the league for 2, 3, 4 years. So it's an interesting debate, which I'm sure will come up in 5 or 6 years' time.
So how many Super Bowls does he have won? Last year?
I think that's it. Yeah, I think that was his first one. Because was he drafted in 2011?
He missed out. He was too late in Pittsburgh, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say that Antonio Brown won that game from the Bucs last season. I mean, yeah, he made a touchdown catch, but
I don't know.
Yeah.
He just one of the best wide receivers ever to play the game for me. And the way that he played the game, the sort of frame that he was a game-breaking player every single time he walked on the field. Even when he was wide receiver 3 in Tampa, he was still someone you had to account for. And that's what made Tampa so dangerous, is because you've got Mike Evans, and you've got him, and you've got several other people you have to account for. And it's like, oh, shit. It's like, he's one of the best. His career might be cut short by him being by him having issues. I don't know whether it's him being a dick or him having mental instability. Like that's one of those things that's so hard to tread here, because like, without wanting to like say anything too much about this, if it turned up that he'd committed suicide like a couple of weeks from now, would anyone actually genuinely tell me they were surprised? Like that it took them completely out of the blue. Like, we're dealing with someone who clearly is unstable. So I don't think that we should be going in on him that much, even though his conduct has been clearly awful.
I'm just thinking back to that Hard Knocks series with the Raiders, where he spent like 2 episodes basically complaining about his cleats. I don't think that's like mental illness. That's just someone being a dick.
There was always, even like I say, now it seems to have gone so far away from the norm that you almost can't take it seriously, because, like I say, you don't have any information on it, and it feels like it could be serious behind the scenes. In the early days, he was well known for being a diva, though. Yes. He was a full diva wide receiver who was causing issues in that Pittsburgh locker room long before he ended up leaving. So,
if he's not well, why is he playing? Who does he benefit? Because he don't benefit himself. He don't need the money. If he ain't well, then this is the worst environment for him to be in.
Yeah, I mean, when Everson Griffin did that post where he said he was locked in his basement with a gun and there were people trying to get him, like, that's someone that, you know, you worry about from a mental illness point of view.
Yeah. Or former Seattle and San Francisco cornerback
Sherman.
That's the one. Yeah. What happened to him as well in the off season?
Yeah.
Like, he hasn't had like an episode like that. So yeah, fair point. Fair point, well taken. Okay, let's get off this and move on to the Packers preview, because there is a game this weekend, last one of the season, and let's start breaking it down. Betting, I checked it again, and the odds are starting to drift. Packers 15-8 on favourites, Lions 6-4. The spread was 2.5, now 3.5 points in favour of the Packers. 44.5 over under, was 43.5 earlier in the week. So starting to think, I think with the starters playing a bit longer for the Packers, that more likely they're going to win and by a higher number. On the injury report, I don't think that's been updated for Thursday yet, but I'll just refresh now. No, not quite yet. But limited in practice for the Packers. David Bakhtiari, left tackle. Devondre Campbell, who missed out on the Pro Bowl, I don't know how. Dominic Daphne, Aaron Jones, and then did not practice Kingsley Keke and Aaron Rodgers. For the Lions, Kabinda didn't practice, and the rest were limited. They were Brockers, Goff, Jackson, Mabin, and Wright. Having a look at their IR, they've got Zadarius Smith on there, Robert Tonyan, and Elgton Jenkins, all big misses in their own right. They're 13-3. Pro Football Reference says their expected win total is 10.1, so slightly performing ahead of expectation. Football Outsiders also has them at 10 exactly. So both metrics seeming to think that they've been a bit lucky through the season so far. They're first in the NFC North and have clinched the number 1 seed overall in the NFC. Their 3 losses. Week 1 at the Saints, they scored 3 points and really laid an egg. They were very, very poor. But since then, obviously, they've gone 13-2 since week 1. They lost week 9 against Kansas City in Kansas City with Jordan Love under centre, which means they've only lost once since week 1 with Aaron Rodgers under centre. They lost week 11 at Minnesota. They were 13 points behind early, and despite going up late and then tying the game with 2 minutes to go, Minnesota and Kirk Cousins got it done in Minneapolis. And, you know, Minnesota are dangerous when they actually do get in a rhythm. I don't think with any of those that they've actually lost particularly any games that you'd be like, well, this is how you beat this team. Like, there's no obvious way to do it apart from get ahead early and try and put them under pressure. Which, if you remember rightly, is what we did in week 2. It didn't work particularly well for us. The last 3 games, they beat Baltimore in Baltimore 31-30, beat the Cleveland Browns 24-22, and then in the repeat against Minnesota in Green Bay, they beat them and beat them badly 37-10. Just finish off this little bit with the overall metrics. In DVOA, they are 12%, which is 10th in the NFL. And per PFF grades, 89.9 overall is 6th, which seems to match up with where they think they should be, given they've been slightly lucky per both of those metrics. Hearing all of that, boys, what do you make of the Packers this season overall as a unit? Let's go for Steve first, because you're the NFC North writer for NFL Scotland, so you're an expert on this.
I think the thing that I unfortunately have to admire about the offense is that they find so many different ways to win. And, you know, we're talking about the Lions and Aaron Glenn earlier and saying, you know, COVID and issues with the roster and all that kind of stuff. I mean, the Packers have had so many, you know, injuries and COVID issues this season. You know, and I don't think there's been, you know, many games when Devontae Adams, Aaron Jones, Lazard, and Tonyan have all been fit. Bakhtiari's missed pretty much the whole season. But they just find ways to win, and they bring other, you know, Aaron Jones is out or not playing well or carrying injury, and they bring in AJ Dillon. You know, Tonyan's out, and in comes Mercedes Lewis. All of a sudden, you know, Alan Lazard's catching passes because Devontae Adams is getting double teamed, and Rodgers is always there with a clutch throw. It's disgusting, and it's just crushing to watch, because you watch teams really try and get into them with their defense, and they throw the kitchen sink at them, the blitz packages, they mix up the coverage, and you know they might knock the Packers off their stride for a moment, but then you know there comes the halftime interval, and LaFleur has been really, really good at making adjustments, and Rodgers seems to kind of be able to run the offense how he wants. He seems to have a big hand in it, and you know, after halftime, he comes out in the third quarter and will throw 3 touchdowns on the first 3 drives, and the game's just gone. So this is kind of what the offense has consistently done, and maybe Rodgers hasn't been as flashy. I think he's certainly not tried to run the ball as much and been a little bit more kind of confined in the pocket, but you know, he still can make those throws. I think the defense is the interesting one, and we were talking earlier about, you know, the 13-3 seasons, but is it going to bring them a Super Bowl? And this is where the real soft underbelly is, because yeah, they've got a bit of pass rush, but they've got a very average linebacker core. I think Ryan mentioned it a couple of pods ago about their linebacker core just not really, you know, setting the world alight. And in the secondary, yeah, they've got Jair Alexander, and Stokes, who's their rookie corner, has flashed this season and has made some big plays, but he's also very beatable. And obviously they've got like people like Kevin King still knocking about, who's like a walking liability. So for me, I think, for seasoned Packers watchers, that's the hope, that the defense comes up against, you know, a Bucs offense or a Rams offense in the playoffs that just tortures them.
For me, I think when you look at the Packers this year, like when you look at the transaction, the waiver wire, there's a lot of teams that when things aren't going great, they'll bring in a shed load of guys. But the Packers don't seem to throw a lot of money around in season. They don't seem to bring in a horde of new faces. They will pick and choose who they do. And when they do, they seem to get it right. Look at Rasul Douglas. They brought this kid in who's he's not had the best of careers, but since joining the Packers, he has had game-sealing interceptions. He's changed it. I think he scored a touchdown. He's like someone that's brought in of real value. And for me, that goes to LaFleur. I saw today he's plus 175 to win head coach of the year. So he's favourite again because as Steve mentions, he makes adjustments. He knows what packages he wants. He's very hands-on in who he wants to bring in, who is around him. He's got a very good, solid core people of players. Eric Stokes he's slowly improved. The game, I think, has slowed down for him during the season. He started, but he struggled poorly. The likes of Lazard stood up, and like MVS has really taken regress this year. You've had Equinus, St. Brown, kind of non-factors. Like I said, they've had to replace tight ends, Tonyan. They've had Lewis, Sternberg, it didn't work out, but he somehow just managed to churn out yardage. They managed to catch you off. It's great play calling. They're so balanced when they want to be. And just when you think you've put them away, like we've seen them go 2-3 scores down at times, they come out like that, come out on speed, they hit you on the break, and they catch you cold. And once they get the momentum and they wrestle away from you, they're really not someone that lets go of it. I think this could be the year that everything kind of clicks. I have got them predicted to make the Super Bowl. I think that high-powered offense will be able to make up for a defense that can be a little bit leaky at times. And I think everything, unfortunately, is in the stars. If this could be Rodgers last year, that he's going to go out on top. He's going to make sure he puts everything out there. But they really are good. I think 10 wins for them at this point, or like predicting that, seems like a really low total. I think they lowballed them there, I'd say.
Yeah, and I wonder if that then comes down to the discussion we just had about Rodgers, and that actually, yes, they're not perfect across the board, but when you've got Aaron Rodgers controlling it, you're going to get those games that maybe the data suggests you shouldn't. Like I say, you mentioned Russell Douglas. He made a play to win a game, and they've clearly had guys just step up to make sure they get over the line on these things. But when that offense gets rolling, and it's been this way for 3-4 years, it's just so hard to stop because you've got a top 3, and maybe I'm doing him a disservice, quarterback in the league, and a top 2 who's not number 2 wide receiver in the league, which, as it was said a couple of weeks ago. So if you can't stop them in the air, and you rarely can, you've got no chance. And if you then commit to bracketing Adams and trying to get them that way, they'll just run it down your throat. And especially with them looking to potentially take starters out early, I think that could be the game script for today, as they go kind of up tempo and try and get out to a lead early against the Lions on Sunday. Going all the way through to the playoffs and things, it seems every year they look this good, or not this good, but really good going into the playoffs. It's when they hit a game where they don't get that offense rolling, that's when they seem to struggle. Rodgers looks so in control at times, then actually, if things aren't going his way, his kind of panic level is so different to someone like Brady's. Obviously, they're both incredible quarterbacks, but it will be really interesting to see if that happens again in the playoffs, whether he can respond.
Yeah, absolutely. Got a quick question from Dan, who says, Steve, why is the Packers O-line so good this year compared to past years?
I think they really do have that next man up just absolutely nailed. And when you think about the Lions and, the kind of chaotic scenes we've seen on a couple of our O-lines when Decker was out or Wagner was out, they just seem to be able to slot people in. I remember when Bakhtiari was out and they brought in that Elton Jenkins, and I think they moved position with him, and even the Packers fans were like, Jenkins isn't that good, he's going to get found out. And Jenkins just came in and looked like he'd been playing that position all of his career. And then I think Jenkins has been out, and they brought in another guy, and guess what? He was pretty solid too. And as Tom said, they've got that ability to. It looks like you finally stopped them, and all of a sudden, someone like Randall Cobb. I think Randall Cobb had a 54-yard touchdown run to win one of the games. You're like, Randall Cobb, 54 yards. Where's this coming from? But I think because when you see like bad O-lines, particularly with like replacements in, the quarterback play is so vital. And you see with Goff, quite often the Goff's positioning in the pocket just leads to sacks. These aren't coverage sacks. Goff's just moved the wrong way in the pocket. And Rodgers is just like he's like a ballet dancer when he's in the pocket. He doesn't look particularly mobile, but he just seems to have a knack of knowing where and where not to stand. And if he does need to, to roll out, he always rolls out in the right corridor. And I think that gives his O-line the confidence that they always know where to block. So I think some of it is that they've obviously got a really good system in place with the coaching for the O-line and also like a production line and that kind of next man mentality. But a lot of it is on Rodgers and the way he plays. And he really helps out the O-line. He doesn't stretch them out and he doesn't expose them.
Yeah, it's what I was going to say actually about Goff. So in the last 3 games that Goff had, he showed more confidence and the line showed more confidence in him. When you talk about complementary football, it's not just about the offense and the defense playing each other well, but it can be in the positional groups too. So it's the ultimate with Green Bay. The O-line trusts Rodgers, Rodgers trusts the O-line. They get it done together, and it seems to be telepathic at times.
And also you've got people like Tonyan and AJ Dillon helping out with the blocking, and that's obviously an advantage as well.
Yeah. Right, let's talk more about that offense. Per PFF, 83.2 overall grade is 7th in the NFL. Per DVOA, 20.9% is second. They've scored, I actually don't know how many points they've scored because they didn't fill it in. 420 points this season. 26.3 per game is 10th in the NFL. They've got 378 completions on 550 attempts, 4,059 yards, 36 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and 6.9 net yards per attempt through the air. That's third in passing touchdowns and first in interceptions. In the run, 419 carries, 1,778 yards, 12 touchdowns, only 4.2 yards per attempt though, which is 20th in the NFL. Third down, in situations, they are 80 conversions on 188 attempts, 42.6% is 9th, and on fourth down, 12 of 20 is 60% and 8th. But surprisingly, in the red zone, they slow down a little bit. 39 touchdowns on 67 trips, 58%, 19th in the NFL. So perhaps some room for improvement when the field shrinks a bit, or maybe it's just Rodgers has got such great deep ball that actually shrinking the field limits his abilities potentially a little bit. Talking about their playmakers, so I'm going to start off anyway with Aaron Jones, the running back, one of the elite talents of that position in the league. 171 carries, 799 yards, 4 touchdowns, 4.7 yards per carry, and through the air he's a weapon too. 52 of 65, 391 yards, and 6 touchdowns through the air. PFF grade of 82.3, and complemented by AJ Dillon, the bruiser, 173 carries, 740 yards, and 5 touchdowns, 4.3 yards per carry. And then through the air, 33 of 36 is insane as a completion rate. 309 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a PFF grade of 87.5. And if that isn't bad enough, then we talk about Devontae Adams. Wide receiver, 117 receptions on 162 targets, 1,498 yards, 11 touchdowns, and a PFF grade of 92.5 on average. I don't know how many times the Lions have had a guy graded above 90 all season once. Alan Lazard, obviously also a weapon in that group, 35 on 54, 438, and 6 touchdowns at PFF grade of 63, so a bit of regression there. And Marquez Valdes-Scantling rounds off that group. I have not put the right number there, so bear with me a moment. Valdes-Scantling, 26 receptions on 54 attempts, which is just less than 50%. 430 yards, 16.5 yards per catch, 3 touchdowns, which goes some way to explaining why he drops them, because they're bloody deep all the time. PFF grade of 67.5. It's a stacked group. Pick your poison, you'll lose one way or the other, right? I mean, Valdes-Scantling was the ultimate player for that last year when, teams actually did manage to take away Adams just a little bit and he'd pop up for a 70-yard touchdown just to completely break your heart.
Yeah, this offense is a juggernaut. I don't throw that word around lightly, but it's as you mentioned, you can't stop both. You pick one and you try to slow down the other. You try to stop one if you try to stack the box. You know for a fact that Adams, Lazard, they're just going to torch you. And red zone efficiency, maybe it's not that high because when you're scoring 60, 70-yard passing touchdowns, you don't get to the red zone, do you? If they do all their heavy work between the 20s, or they don't need that red zone percentage because they know they've got a deep ball, they've got the money shot that some teams don't have. When you get into those obvious passing downs and the coverage tries to tighten up, that's where Davante Adams comes alive. He's one of those guys that is nearly uncoverable. A lot of those misses are just because of deep shots, overthrows, and mainly bad throws. Everything that comes in his radius, he usually brings in because he is without a doubt the best receiver in football. And I'm worried already.
I think
he frightens the life out of me.
I think there was a play last week that I saw where he was throwing the ball and he dropped it on a key third down, and they said that was the first drop all season by Davante Adams.
Wow. One drop.
That's ridiculous.
It's not even that surprising either. I mean,
No.
he's just good. I mean, yeah, when I will come on to, I'm sure I really worry about our corners. When it comes to, I mean, Davante Adams puts people in a blender. He's so good with his release package. And when you look at someone like Iffy, who even coming into the draft season and then this year, and especially with the time off, if you put him in press, he has not got a load of experience there, and he is very much still learning, and he will bite hard on some of these moves, and it could get pretty ugly, I reckon, unfortunately.
Just thinking of Will Harris and what they're doing to do to Will Harris.
I mean, the thing about Will Harris is that he's at least athletic. I mean, Marquez Valdes-Scantling has no nuance to him whatsoever. He is a burner, and he'll catch you unawares if you're not expecting him to run past you. So I think Will Harris is actually an okay matchup for Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Just run that way. Fine, you're okay. Davante Adams against anyone's a mismatch, so it's going to be interesting to see what if he does. I hope that if he follows him around, because that's the best matchup we have for him. So, just put a safety over the top of him. In fact, why not just do the thing that teams have done to Calvin in the past and just put two men on the line against him and just say, you can't run through both of us? It's got to work, right?
Yeah, I mean, he might not beat us that way. I mean, to be honest, Davante Adams is the guy who I immediately zero in on. He's just so good. We talk about Rodgers. At the same time, I think they're going to run it down our throat. I don't think we've really shown we can stop that over the last how many weeks. And you mentioned earlier about this Packers O-line being good. It's always good. Their running backs were obviously exceptional. So I'm more worried about how we're going to stop them in between the tackles than Davante Adams, even though he's a much bigger threat. I just don't think it's even going to, I don't think he's going to be as relevant a part of the game script.
Just want to give a shout out to everyone watching us live on Twitch and YouTube, to Dan and Derek, and there was someone else in there as well. Mathis Staffer, 1Pride40, Hatters House, all you guys are great. Thank you so much again for joining in and chatting with us. If you've got any questions along the way, please do let us know and we'll try and get them sorted. Otherwise, for all you guys out there on the audio as well, appreciate you. It's been our best fortnight of listens once again, guys. Constant growth. So that's really, really encouraging. If you've got any suggestions for the pod or anything like that, our email address is on our YouTube channel if you want to get in touch. Okay, let's talk about this defense. PFF grade 77.1. You might be surprised to hear is the third in the NFL. DVOA grade, however, I did not fill in because I clearly just am useless at this preparation stuff. Let's load this up. I've got that they're 21st, which I don't believe, considering that PFF grade.
They certainly don't feel like a third in the NFL defense from what I've seen this season.
So, defensive DVOA, 1.6%, 19th. So I don't know why I didn't change that, but apologies for that. So, it's one of those things, isn't it, where you don't think it has, and yet you spoke about that cornerback that they picked up, who is obviously Russell Douglas, who's come in and done fantastic. But one of the other guys who's come in this year and been an absolute revelation compared to anything he's been in the past is Devondre Campbell. You mentioned that the linebackers don't really look like they've got it, but per PFF grade, and I'll come on to this in depth a bit more later, but he is 78.7 against the run. That's their best run defense grade of any player, including some of the defensive tackles that they have. And he has a 90.4 tackle grade. So, just in particular, so Devondre Campbell's an 84.5 PFF grade this season. He's played every game. This is his first year with the team. He has not posted above a 69 grade in his career since he was drafted in 2016. And his grades in the last 2 seasons were 50.1 and 49. So this is stark contrast and maybe a system that just suits him in the linebacker spot. I mean, as a mid-linebacker, he's required to obviously stuff the run a lot, and he's been doing it, at least by these metrics, exceedingly well. And maybe it's one of those things where their previous woes at doing this kind of precede them a little bit. Having said that, the overall statistics don't look particularly good for them. So in terms of points allowed, they're actually pretty good. 334 is 20.9 per game, and that's 8th in the NFL. In passing, they've conceded 357 receptions on 571 attempts, 3,419 yards, 28 touchdowns, 18 interceptions, and 5.6 net yards per attempt. That's 5th in interceptions and 3rd in net yards per attempt. So they force teams to throw short, and they pick the ball off a lot. Rushing, 369 carries, 1,756 yards, 12 touchdowns, and 4.8 yards per attempt. That is 31st in yards per attempt on the ground. So despite Devondre Campbell, they still suck at defending the run. 3rd down, they're not particularly good at getting off the field. 83 conversions on 192 attempts, 43.2% is 25th in the NFL. On 4th down, the same conversion rate, 43.2%, but from 25th on 3rd down, that becomes 7th on 4th down. Don't really understand that. Maybe it's just that teams are good at 4th down. They only attempt them when they're in really favourable situations, perhaps. I don't know. In the red zone, they are atrocious. And I think that is probably a function of their really poor run defense. But 31 touchdowns on 44 trips. So there's not many trips, but that's 70.5% rate, 31st in the NFL, which is just shocking. But yeah, so you mentioned Rasul Douglas. Only 11 games for the team. I think he was an in-season pickup. I think he was a free agent early on when they picked him up. 5 interceptions, 2 touchdowns from those 5 interceptions, 13 passes defended, a forced fumble, 56 tackles, 51 of which were solo, and a PFF grade of 74.8, which is fantastic as a replacement level player off the street, effectively. Their first round rookie, Eric Stokes, from the slot, an interception, 14 passes defended, 53 tackles, 41 of which solo, and a PFF grade of 65.7, which is one of the best linebackers as a rookie this season. Not a particularly great grade, but in context, with cornerback being one of the hardest positions to translate to the NFL, is really, really solid. I've mentioned Devondre Campbell. 2 interceptions, 5 passes defended, 2 forced fumbles and a fumble recovery, 2 sacks, 146 tackles, 102 of which solo, 6 tackles for a loss, 6 quarterback hits, and a PFF grade of 84.5. They've also, at the back end, got Adrian Amos, the safety, 2 interceptions, 8 passes defended, 88 tackles, 71 solo, PFF grade of 76.3. And then the 2 pass rushers who are healthy, one of which Michigan fans are very familiar with, Rashawn Gary, second-year player. I think he was first rounder last season, I believe. 2 forced fumbles and a fumble recovery, 9.5 sacks, sack leader for the team, 44 tackles, 25 which solo, 8 tackles for loss, 28 quarterback hits, and a PFF grade of 87.2. And also one half of the Smith brothers, Preston Smith, 2 passes defended, 2 forced fumbles, and 2 fumble recoveries, 9 sacks, 37 tackles, 25 which solo, 9 tackles for loss, 16 quarterback hits, and a PFF grade of 79.3. Whatever you think about this defense, it is not short of playmakers.
Oh, they're going to batter us. If we're missing a starting tackle, they're going to have an absolute field day. They're going to pitch a tent up in that backfield because they get pressure. They get quarterback hits, which they're good where we're bad. And as you mentioned, they like to pick you off short. And name teams more in the league that like to throw short than Detroit, because Goff still loves to check down. He's trending towards playing I'm worried about them undercutting those short routes. There's a reason that Douglas has got 2 touchdowns, because he takes those short routes away, comes underneath. That's where he does his best work, closest line of scrimmage, because he's diagnosing players. I am extremely worried about this defense. As you mentioned, Campbell reminds me a lot of Blake Martinez, absolute tackle machine. He's great in stuff in the run and meeting guys at the line of scrimmage. So Craig Reynolds, Williams are going to have a lot of work there. They may not get massive holes. So this game is going to be won and lost at line of scrimmage if we're able to hold up that pass rush. They're going to bring up Amos, I imagine, to the box as well, who's had a good year. So they're good. There are great players. There are momentum guys, changes on this defense. So it's certainly not going to be easy to keep them quiet.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. And I think the secondary is so good. I mean, they've got Darnell Savage and Adrian Amos at safety, who are a pretty good safety pair. They're probably one of the top 10 safety pairs in the league. But then when you add in, Jair Alexander, who's probably a top 3 corner, Stokes has been, I think, beatable, but for a rookie, he's had a very solid season. And you've got, as you said, Russell Douglas just come out of nowhere. The secondary is so good. You've got to be able to run on them, and like I said, they do have a soft underbelly, and there have been a couple of teams that have managed to exploit this season. I just don't think the Lions have got what it takes to be able to do that, and particularly with the state of our O-line at the moment. I think St. Brown is going to, if St. Brown has a decent day and a touchdown catch and 90 yards, I'll be absolutely delighted, because I think he is going to be up against probably the toughest competition that he's been all season. And if he does put some numbers up, that kind of says it all about what a good prospect he is. Trinity Benson, I'm not sure what a part he's going to play in this game.
It's Daryl Hodge season now, baby.
The only thing I'd say Devondre Campbell is part of the reason he's probably got so many tackles is because you've got those 2 guys on the edge holding contain, and then Kenny Clark, who's a great player, has been pretty awful against the run this year. So you're almost just funneling guys down the middle for Campbell to make all these tackles. So if we can get after them on the inside of our line, then great. But yeah, it's going to be a tough day out. I don't actually. What are the chances we get either Sewell or Decker back? I'm assuming very low.
Well, we've had.
They can come back, can't they?
They can come back. So we've had several weeks in a row where players have gone on the COVID list on Monday, and none of them have returned by Sunday. We have a 0% conversion rate from Monday COVID list to Sunday game. So possible, but low. I'd give it less than 10% on either.
Now there's that 5-day rule, which may have been in place last week, but in general hasn't been in place, right? So that's probably made it more challenging. But yeah, I mean, if we don't have those guys, then I don't want to say goodnight, but it's going to be tough sledding. Let's say that.
I don't know. I fancy Matt Nelson against. Oh no, wait, no, that's a lie. Against Rashad Gary, that's going to be an interesting one. I just fear this team. I do. Like, even though they're rushing, their run defense is so bad. It's all on interior. So it's center, left guard, left tackle. Whoever plays left tackle, if they can go to work, and if Jamal Williams can just run behind them, because that's where Jamal likes to run, is in that B gap between the left guard and left tackle. If that works, we got a shot. And Stokes versus Aaron Ra is like the one matchup I'm genuinely interested to see, for however long Stokes is on the field, of course. In fact, let's talk about special teams and then about how long we actually think they're going to play. So this is probably the worst of all time special teams. Maybe. It's close. 59.4 grade per PFF is actually only 31st, so maybe I'm being unfair. But DVOA, and I've never seen a DVOA grade this low on special teams. Minus 5.8% is last in the league, but it's woeful. I mean, it cannot be overstated how bad this unit is. Mason Crosby, the kicker, We know and love him very well for his 4 doink game or whatever it was. It was horrific. 24 of 33 this season in field goals, so not stellar, but 48 of 49 on extra points is not too shabby, I guess. 43.2% kickoff start touchback rate, so could be some opportunities to return and or fumble the ball for the Lions. Punter is Corey, and I cannot say that last name.
Bjorkes?
Bajorquez?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. 52 punts, average of 46.8 yards per punt. So, their starters, boys, how long do we think they will play? Because it's confirmed they will play. Is this basically going to run like a preseason game for the Packers starters?
Can I just say, the Packers' special teams have been utterly pathetic this season. It's been hilarious. And there's been a couple of games where their special teams have got them into a real hole, and like the offense and the defense have had to like work really hard to dig them out. I think one of our biggest weapons is Jack Fox, because their punt returning is awful in terms of fumbles and muffed returns. They've had several punts blocked, missed field goals. It's just been hilariously bad. And I'm sure that the special teams guy is going to get fired at the end of the season. So, yeah, that is definitely going to be... I don't think it's going to be a game changer, but it's certainly going to be an area of potential amusement and salvation for us to at least have a bit of a break if their special teams are anything like it. But, we were just having a bit of a pre-pod chat about this, and my view is very much, I think we're going to see a quarter of the offense and the defense first string, and then I think they're going to hope to put like 10 or 14 points on us, and then I think they will give the second and third stringers a chance to impress.
Do you think, just quickly, do you think if the Lions are more combative and perhaps the game is level through one quarter, that might keep the starters on the field longer, or do you just think they'll come in with a plan of this is how long it's going to be and then no more?
Well, I mean, they're 13-3. They've got the home field advantage.
No. We've got the home field advantage.
No, 13-3. They've got home field.
Oh, I see what you mean. Sorry, fair number one. Yeah. My bad.
That is the. If you've got home field advantage and the bye, so you go into Lambeau, you've got a week off. There is just simply no reason to risk the first string. I mean, Lafleur would get crucified by the media if any of his key players got injured in the first quarter. He'd get crucified.
Maybe that's true, but so in his press conference either yesterday or today, he came out and said, I've looked at the statistics, and generally speaking, the teams that play the week before when they have the bye coming off play better going into the playoffs. The team that have a week off tend to do worse, so they're at least playing some part. So, do you think...
He's got to say that, hasn't he? He's got to say that.
Well, but does that not feel right to you? Whenever this happens and teams do take a week off, the only bit of commentary you hear from the national media is 3 weeks is a long time to not play a game. And you get out of rhythm quickly, and actually this just isn't the smartest thing to do. It feels like Lafleur's trying to pick the method of which you minimise the injury risk while still keeping them in game prep time, so it maximises their return. I feel like it's the smartest thing I've heard come out of his mouth all season.
Maybe we'll get a quarter and a half. I don't know, but I just cannot see any of the first stringers in the second half, even if they're 3 points down at the interval. Why would you? Because if the Packers in their divisional game, if they're caught cold by someone, of course that's what everyone's going to say. They've not played for 3 weeks. But at the same time, if anything happens to, imagine if Devontae Adams gets rolled up on in like the first quarter. I mean, it's just disaster for them, isn't it? I think in terms of risk and reward, you've got to err on the side of caution.
So I think Green Bay have had a really good team for a long time and they haven't got to the Super Bowl. So I actually like the aggression of saying, we're putting a few guys at risk here by going out, but we're not just going to sit and hope that in 3 weeks we're ready to go. We're going to keep it going a bit more. So I'm not even saying that I 100% agree with it, but I quite like the aggression from the head coach, at least, to say, we're not just going to give these guys 3 weeks off and then I have to deal with all the media questions if they don't come out and perform. If something happens in the first quarter on Sunday, it happens. That's football, next man up, all that kind of cliche. But I like that they're being aggressive about it. I would hope that the Lions would do something similar, not if, but when we are in that position in a few years' time.
I think the Packers will play everybody for the first half. They do not want to lose this game. They don't want to give us one of those cheap wins. But at the same time, I don't want another. Remember when was it 3 years ago when they played Deshaun Kaiser and we won like 35-0? Was that enjoyable?
39-0.
Was that enjoyable? No, it wasn't. I didn't enjoy that game whatsoever because it felt like a total freebie, like they gave us one. I think they will try get 2-3 scores ahead at the half, and then we'll see Jordan Love because he needs playing time desperately. Yeah. He has got to see the field. And if he's going to be one of the weakest opposition he plays all year, that's how they're going to measure what they've got with him by. But I expect best part of a whole half, we'll see the entire lineup because they do not want to go and wait a few weeks and be rusty. But it's risk and reward, it's true. They were never going to sit Rodgers. They were never, even with a dodgy toe that needs healing, they weren't going to let him go into that playoff game just so stiff and out of practice.
That game a few years ago was one to really make the Tankers angry because I think we went from the 3rd overall pick to the 8th overall pick by winning that game. So it does make me happy going into. We've had a lot of tank no tank discussion over the season, but it makes me happy that there is only a reason to root for the Lions this week. We're not going to be picking any lower than 2nd, and realistically, we're not going to be picking 1st. So it's just everyone's on the same boat here.
I don't know, is it bad that I sneakily like the Jags against the Colts at least to cover the spread, but I kind of fancy the Jags.
No, I was going to say that I think the Colts will sit players. I don't think because have the Colts locked the playoffs up?
No. If they lose that out,
yeah,
right. But I do kind of like the Jags because they've got nothing to play for whatsoever. They will pull all the tricks out to try and impress a new head coach. I think they'll go all out there.
And it's just like the Colts, especially Carson Wentz, to shit the bed at the worst possible moment. Like, there's just something about it that just makes me think if the Jags can just limit the run game of the Colts, just even a little bit, it gives them a shot, I think, for the Colts to just shoot themselves in the foot.
It's a divisional game too, right, for them. So there is a bit of history there.
I just sneakily fancy it. It's one of those that, like, you know the odds are going to be like 10-1, like a plus 1,000. And it's like, that looks good. That looks really good as someone who's sworn off betting for a little while now. There we go. Dan has just said, hell yeah, Bevel bumped for his old team. I feel so bad he can't get a head coach position. Well, if you have a look at how the Jags have done since Meyer's gone, they've gotten worse. Like, there's no doubt that the Jags have performed much worse with Urban Meyer not there. So no matter what you think of Urban as a coach, it's been rough the past couple of weeks as the Jags. I mean,
they look like a team that had given up last week against the Patriots.
Yeah. I mean, the number of points they conceded was kind to them, which is horrible considering they conceded. Was it near 60?
50.
Yeah.
50.
Yeah.
Yeah, just rough stuff. Right. Okay. Ways to win, guys. If we are going to do this. Okay. I mean, if the Packers do pay some semblance to their second string, we are going to have chances here, sure. So, first one I've got listed is pound the rock. Green Bay run D is awful. In week 2, don't forget that Detroit went 19 for 108 on the ground. More than 5.5 yards a carry. It can be done. And the Packers have proved it all season, like we said, soft underbelly. But can we do it without the starting tackles, even against the second string defense of the Packers? So going into the second half, let's say we're within a score. Let's say we're 7 down. Can we do it? Or is it that we just get away from the run game too easily and we'll shoot ourselves in the foot anyway?
I think for one, the main thing is we need to play a clean game. We went back to being last week. We went back to getting penalised again. And we're always behind. When you're going to have 2, maybe nobody novice tackles, you're going to expect we're going to get false starts. we're going to get penalties this week and we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot. That is the key thing. Can we just start from 1st and 10 every time? Let's not get behind the chains, shoot ourselves in the foot, because then the game plan goes out the window. Then we're trying to do things to claw back yardages to get back to the line of scrimmage. If we play a reasonably close game that's clean and we're able to not rack up the false starts, then I think the run game, especially Jamal Williams, it's a revenge game for him. It's always going to be, as long as he's a Lion. I think he can do well if he's able to be patient behind the centre. We're going to be able to chip away at them, especially when they do take out the likes of Kenny Clark. There's no chance he's going to play the whole game. If they put in a backup nose tackle, run at him. I'd say run it down the throats, because that will open up. Like I say, Stokes is fast, but Amon-Ra on those crossing outs, he's going to get a bit of separation. So the run will create the pass, I think.
The key with the run is also time of possession, because we just talked about the starters probably going to be until around about half time. So if we can control the ball, not allow their offense on the field for a lot of the first half and keep it close, I'd actually love to know the Lions' points for and against for the second half this year, because in general, that's when we seem to have kept things interesting, even when it looked dire. So I think if we can control the clock a little bit in the first half, keep it within reach, the second half still could get pretty interesting. It normally does for the Lions.
I think running the ball is the way forward, and I genuinely think we can probably pick up some points on special teams, some trick plays that they will make a mistake somewhere on special teams that we can capitalise on. Having said that, I think the 3.5 spread to Green Bay is incredibly tempting.
What, on the Green Bay side of it?
In terms of, I think it's going to be a lot more than that.
Fair enough.
I think it's safe to say we know Dan Campbell's going to go for literally every 4th down. We're going to see the most aggressive Dan I think we've seen all year, because there's no pressure on us whatsoever to win or get a result. He is going to get the bag of tricks out. We're going to see at least one fake punt, and we're going to see at least one onside kick, and I can't wait.
It's going to be fun. The special correspondent, Ash Soden, has weighed in, as he always does at this time, by saying, apparently, that the Jacksonville Jaguars have beaten the Colts at every home game, every season since 2016. Apparently.
Wow. Yeah, I heard that stat somewhere else, that they've got this incredible record, but I'm not sure how many of those games were kind of in the normal season, and how many was kind of in this situation now. I mean, the Jags are just done.
If I remember rightly, their win last season against the Colts was week 1, and then they lost every subsequent game.
That's right. Yeah. No, I think you're right. Yeah.
So it mattered. It was the game that mattered the most for them, and that was it. They were done for the year. They got their win against the Colts, and they were happy to shut up shop and get Trevor Lawrence all the good that it did them. You guys have already mentioned some of the other stuff that I've got in here. Win time of possession, get out 12 off the field, limit offensive penalties. I have also stopped the run, win in the trenches, which we kind of mentioned earlier. They have the 2nd highest ranked running grade per PFF, but awful run blocking. And I think those two feed into each other. The way that PFF grade their runners is that it's all about kind of overcoming their blocking rather than anything else. So if you see a team that has really good run blocking, their run grade tends to suffer, because it's like, well, you haven't done anything special. It was your O-line. So when the O-line is bad, but the running efficiency is still good, well, then the running grade really seems to explode. So their run blocking is terrible, but Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon are exceptional players, and they both bring something so different to each other. It's like we have the light version of it in Swift and Williams, really. I don't know if that's fair, but do you guys kind of agree with that a bit?
I just don't want AJ Dillon to become a thing. Like, I just don't want him to become a thing. It's just so tiresome. And the commentators always fawn over him as well.
Just because he's got chunky thighs, I know. Like, they gush over him, don't they? Like, if we're going to go back to last week and how bad the tackling was Like that was bad, especially the running backs. So we're going from Rashad Penny to now playing the likes of Jones and Dillon. It's going to be a case of you have to secure the tackles. I'm looking at JRM, Pittman, Walker, and Marlowe. Like they have got to step it up this week because between them, they missed a cluster of tackles last week, which extended drives when we could have got off the field. So tackling is going to have to be the priority. It's going to have to really buckle up and pull the socks up this week because we're going to see a huge dose of maybe 2 back looks. Like they could be split back either side, so you don't know what's going on there. They're going to mix it up, especially if they've only got one half and they're going to play in.
Yeah. What else have I got? Resist pressure from all over against the 3rd-ranked team for pressure and 6th-ranked team in coverage. Now, I think those kind of go hand in hand as well. When your team's excellent at putting pressure on the quarterback, generally they throw badly, and so your coverage grade goes up because the quarterback isn't throwing as well. So I don't know that those aren't linked, but those rushes against, we know the teams that they've been up against because for the large part we've had pretty much the exact same schedule that they've had. So we know that some of the offensive lines they've come up against have been pretty good, and yet they seem to get consistent pressure all the way through the season. So, when it comes to Matt Nelson and, God forbid, Darren Paolo or whoever else we try and trot out there, Dan Skipper at left tackle or whatever it's going to be.
God.
It's going to be a bit rough, isn't it? So, can we maybe look at Brock Wright to maybe bear some of that load? He's not the worst blocker in the world.
We're going to have to check these guys. Yeah, we're going to have to. I mean, Sean Perry's actually a guy who he didn't start off that well in the league. And his PFF grade, for example, this year from a pass rush standpoint is really up there. It's in the high 80s, I think. So I was quite excited to see him go up against Decker or Sewell and see how he's come on. But like I said, if he's then up against Darren, is he even a real person, Paolo, then yeah, it'll be interesting.
Dan wants to point out when I said that the Jags conceded 50 that we conceded 51. I would argue that we didn't give up, though. Our defense was bad, but our offense actually wasn't anemic and scored the 3rd most points it scored all season. So, I don't know. Dan has also followed up with, what rounds would you draft a tight end this year or free agency? Which I think is something quite interesting because I've been doing a load of mocks recently and I can take one consistently a particular area, but I don't know what you guys think in terms of whether we need one or if you think it might be just good depth or...
I did not want to see a tight end in the first 4 rounds.
Oh,
no, I don't.
Interesting.
No.
I see end of day 2, start of day 3, I could see it happening. But only because, look at, if you take away Hawk, there's just nothing really there. So I could see them going after someone if the value was there. Someone like Jeremy Ruckert, someone like that who offers a little bit of a all-round skill set, not just a right end, but someone who can block as well. I'm not saying I'd be over the moon with it. I certainly wouldn't want it at the top of the 3rd, but I could see that comp pick in the 3rd or the 4th round them doing something.
I'm just loading up my mock. Sorry, you go ahead.
I only want Trey McBride before the 4th. I've got him as my rough tight end one because he's the best, probably combination. Isaiah Likely, too small, won't be an NFL blocker. He's only a little over 6'2", 6'3". Jake Ferguson, decent blocker. These are the kind of guys I'd look at in maybe the 4th round. But as a whole, as a class, we looked over it yesterday. We looked at Senior Bowl roster. I don't feel that confident in it. There's no one here that you look at them and think, they're a star. They're the next Mark Andrews. They're the next. There's none of them in this draft. Like it's a weak class in general. But between like 3 and 5, you might get a load fly off the board. There's like Cole Turner and that Nevada. There's some good guys here. There's guys that can catch and can't block, and there's guys that can block and can't catch. There's 1 or 2 or 3 guys that can do a little bit of both. So free agency, I won't mind. Like someone if Dan Arnold does hit the market again, like he's shown he can be a very serviceable guy as a number 2 if needs be. So I will spend a little bit of free agency because we need a tight end too badly. Because once Hawkinson gets taken away, Darren Waller is a non-factor. Block right is he's a blocker, but he's not that athletic receiving threat. And it just gives us an extra outlet. We have to get some form of tight end help next year.
The only reason I think they might not spend in free agency as much is because they're going to have to pay Hawk either this offseason or next offseason, which might be the only reason why they wouldn't. But yeah.
I hate the idea of paying Hawk this offseason, apart from the fact that you might get it at a discount. I don't know.
No, keep the bucket. We've got that 5th-year option. I just say push it till the cap's going to keep increasing. Surely it's going to be bounced back now. Kick it down the line and do it the final year, I think. I know someone's going to reset the market between now and then, but make him earn it. I'm still not on board with paying him just yet either. Make him earn it.
Part of me kind of thinks that he would be a prime candidate for the franchise tag a couple of times, because it can't be that high at tight end. And if he genuinely deserves it at that point, like, he's just so on that bubble for me of paying him that elite money when he's not worth it, that, like, kind of like Kirk Cousins did when he was at Washington, like, just take the franchise tag a couple of times and then cut bait after 6 years or so, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, I wouldn't mind taking a punt on someone like CJ Uzoma from the Bengals, who's in.
Oh, that would be amazing. Oh, yeah.
I mean, this free agents like Evan Ingram will be a free agent. Someone like that. I think if they can get them for the right price.
I mean, another kind of candidate that might be sneakily available, because I think he's going to get cut in the offseason, is Austin Hooper, who signed a really huge deal with the Browns. I think he was the one that reset the market a couple of years ago. And while he's been good, he hasn't been tight end one, or at least he hasn't been this year. So I don't think they particularly believe in him, and he's probably going to have a cuttable contract. I don't think anyone's going to take it on in a trade, but he's going to hit the market. And could we get him at under market value potentially? I don't know. Sorry,
I was just going to say that we unfortunately, when you look at the tight end class of 2022, I can see some names that are flashing red. Jimmy Graham,
yay!
Eric Ebron,
yay!
Jesse James,
yay!
Bring them all back. Bring the band back together.
Feels like when the opposition team sheet's being called out at football.
Yeah, exactly.
There's one guy I consistently take in mock drafts in the middle of the 4th round, which is Jaleel Billingsley of Alabama. I don't know what Ryan thinks about that.
I've just never seen him used enough. I know what he's got to offer, but he's not a factor in that offense. Especially, he hasn't been this year anyway. He's been a bit of a non-factor because of such a high-powered outsider. Like, he's got the talents, he's got good size, he's got reasonably good speed. So he's someone that I've not seen that high on boards because the numbers aren't there to back up what you think he's got necessarily, especially after this year, even on the run. But he's certainly an option. There's a lot of guys out there that could go undrafted 4, 5, 6, 7 rounds. Like, I'm all aboard on taking a tight end. I took one in a mock. I took Noah Gindorf, a huge red zone threat from North Dakota State. I took him in like the 6th round. He's like 6'6", offers something when you get down the field tightens up. So there's options there. Like I say, I'm not opposed to drafting a tight end at all.
There's been an update on the injury report. The lines have not changed from yesterday, so I won't update with that. But Rodgers back to limited practice. Kingsley Keke still did not practice. Marcellus Lewis, with a non-injury issue, did not practice. Bakhtiari regressed to did not practice today.
Yes.
Everyone else stayed as they were. No, Dominic Daphne full practice from limited yesterday, so that's not moving it particularly. But there we go. There has been a Lions roster move as well in the last 20 minutes or so. We've waived Savion Smith, and Geronimo Allison has been activated back to the practice squad from practice squad COVID list. What fun. He's still in the practice squad. It's fine. It's fine. Don't worry. It's okay.
I thought we'd activated him. Like, oh God, please don't. We've read that script. We've done that book before.
I'd rather see Javon McKinley than Allison.
Let's not trigger and.
Yeah, right, say it 3 times and he will appear. What else did I have? I'm sure I had something. I just get pressure on Aaron Rodgers and hit him several times.
Yeah, I think one thing
with a
that we
stick.
can all unite in is that we just all hope that at some point in that first or second quarter, one of the Packers messes up their blocking assignments, and someone like Charles Harris or Julian Okwara can just slide through and absolutely clean out Aaron Rodgers. It would be amazing.
Oh, I'm hoping for a Lee McNeil, actually.
Oh, just a belly flop, just a huge belly flop.
He's so great. See him do a swan dive afterwards. That'd be peak life.
Yeah, definitely.
Be well worth on sportsmanlike conduct. Tracy suspended next season 1, next game, next season. Destroy Rodgers, wipe him out, end his playoffs. That's fine. We'll take suspension. Take on sportsmanlike conduct. That'll be the win.
I mean, we have previous for injuring Rodgers, don't we? We broke his collarbone 2014, 15 odd sometime.
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
that was extremely satisfying. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a minute. Anything you guys also think that we could do maybe to win this game? Some sort of way, any sort of players you want to turn it around? Anything else you want to see from this game? Never mind winning. Is there some guys that you maybe want to see get some reps who haven't been getting the reps? Or recently Dan Campbell called out Derek Barnes and Levi Onwuzurike. I mean, hopefully we're going to see some improvement from them. Dan calling out players has actually produced results this season so far. So, maybe that could do something.
The officials like to slip on a cheeky tenner. They're never on our side. They don't turn up for us, do they? So it's going to be one of those games again, isn't it? You just know everything's going to go against us.
I don't know if anyone watched the Packers Browns game where Baker Mayfield threw 4 picks, and 2 of them were blatant pass interference by Green Bay. Both no calls. It was just sickening.
That was Douglas's game winner, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, one of them. Yeah, I think.
I think the biggest thing for me is I want guys to stay healthy. I can't remember a season where we've had more injuries than this. And obviously you reach this time now where if you get serious injuries now, you start missing training camp and all those kind of bits and pieces. So for me, I think I've seen everything I've needed to see this season. Obviously we didn't get the wins, but there's been a range of different developments all the way through to obviously Amon-Ra over the last few weeks. So for me, it's just let's stay healthy. Let's get a competitive game in. But on to the off season, on to Mobile. Let's go to the Senior Bowl.
Yeah,
Trinity Benson season.
Oh,
Trinity Benson season. I love it.
I'm actually behind the sort of Hodge hype, though. I genuinely think he looks like he could have something. And when we signed him, we heard that this is a good signing and he does have something, and we shouldn't have let him go. And
that catch to when Boyle overthrew him and he just absolutely just stretched out full length for it. It was a great catch.
Yep. Derek Boberick has just said on Twitch, I want one hard sack on Rodgers. I want the look of holy shit on his face when he gets up.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're all behind that.
Yeah.
Speaking of Tim Boyle, let's hope he never sees the field. Let's hope he never has to enter the game for a single snap. That's
David
all
Blau
I wish.
Season. Would you rather have David Blau so you don't have to see Boyle?
I'd rather get Blau out the way now, so we don't have to have the whole Blau in the practice game in pre-season. When then we have to have the whole David Blau looks like he's having an amazing pre-season. I just don't want to go through that again.
I don't think we'll have to. I think they're both goners, so you can play whoever you want. Steven Montez, that's who I want to see. Get him off the practice squad. Let's see what we've got.
Any more thoughts, Tom, about what you might want to see from this team?
I think so. I'm pro seeing Blau as discussed for a multitude of reasons. Also because he seems like a fundamentally good guy. So it'd be good for him to get some reps and get some tape out there. But also, the whole Blau as our saviour line, which seems to have been said on multiple times this season. Quite keen just to kill that before we get to an off season. But let's get a competitive game in. I mentioned that. I want onside kicks. I want punt blocks. We haven't taken a kickoff or a punt to the house this year, have we?
No. It's been one of the worst. It's been one of the worst years for return touchdowns. I think it's been so few, I believe, especially on punts. There's been a few kickoffs, but punt returns have not been good this year, I think.
I think Jamal Agnew got one at the back end of last season.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's anything since.
We also haven't blocked a punt this year, which we did get a few of last year.
That's because we got rid of Miles Killebrew.
He was very good.
He was the punt blocker.
He was very, very good. Miss that guy. All right. I'm going to take the opportunity quickly to just talk about the podcast that we've got coming up, because obviously we are very quickly hitting the off-season here for a Lions podcast. On Monday, we have the Week 18 review for the Packers game. Hopefully you'll join us for that as the last regular podcast of the year. We then drop down to one a week. Should be every Monday, unless otherwise stated. But during the the episode after that, so it's Monday the 17th of January, we're going to be doing a full season review, and we're going to be taking nominations for the second annual Roar of the Lions awards show. That will be the week after, 24th of January. So if you weren't with us last year, and probably 75% of you listeners were not with us last year, we did a whole show, got dressed up somewhat smartly for it. We took nominations in and then awarded them to, the guys out there. So, none of the Lions players are getting any awards. I don't care what you think about Amon-Ra St. Brown and Rookie of the Year. It's not happening. It's just not, and it sucks, and he should be in consideration, but he's not going to be. But we will do our own version of it. So MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, all that fun stuff. We also need ideas for special, different types of awards. If you've got any ideas, please let us know. So there could be Comeback Player of the Year, Signing of the Year, that sort of thing. UDFA of the Year, I really think should be one, because between some of our UDFAs, that's going to be a real battle. So that's going to be a really great show and a really fun one for us to do. Then we're going to look at the conference championships and the NFL season as a whole, Super Bowl preview, and have a look at the 2021 NFL draft class and how it's done, and the Super Bowl happens, and then we're into our proper off-season program, and it's going to come quickly at you. We're going to be looking at free agency, incoming and outgoing. We'll be looking at each individual position group of interest all the way through to the draft. So we're looking at defensive line, including edge, secondary, linebacker, wide receiver, and quarterback, all in detail before a full first-round mock draft and then a full 7-round Lions mock draft. And then we're into the NFL draft, and that's it. I mean, those are all the episodes we have. We might be able to fit in one or two more on there, but it's going to be really good. So if you've got ideas for awards, I want to hear it, especially some of the funny crackpot ones. Those are going to be really good. I don't know if you guys have any that occur to you now that you want to submit for consideration in terms of maybe slightly humorous awards. Presser moment of the year. Hopefully not the kneecap moment, but
AFC North take of the year?
No. Don't want to hear it, Steve. Your shit take on the Bengals somehow had the 1 in 10 chance of coming true, and it got there. Ugh.
All I'll say is I was mocked. I'm not going to say any more.
Quite rightly, too. Just because you're right doesn't mean you were wrong at the time. Podcast moment of the year? Nothing occurs to me at the moment, if I'm honest, but I'm sure we can think of something. Anyway. Walk-off's touchdown for the Sun God, Dan Pass says. So I'm guessing that's perhaps moment of the year. That's a really good one. What else do we have? Sewell wins Badgers moment of the year against Donaldson. I mean, that was a pretty cool moment, that Penny Sewell in your face moment.
Yeah, that was good. I enjoyed that.
Maybe just NFL moment of the year, because I absolutely loved last week Matt Ryan's particular moment. Don't know if you saw that, but it was fucking hilarious. If you missed it because you don't watch any other team but the Lions, Matt Ryan runs in for a touchdown from the 1 yard line on third down. Fourth down.
Yep. Fourth down, I think.
Fourth and 1 from the 1. Walks in for a touchdown, celebrates very viciously in the face of a defender.
Well, he didn't walk in. He went to slide, but fucked up the slide and did a sort of head first slide.
Yes, something like that. So in the face of defender, basically being like, "Fuck you, I own you," sort of Aaron Rodgers thing, but without the cool aspect of what happened. And then it appeared, as Steve was alluding to, that actually he didn't quite get in, and that his knee was down. So the 15-yard taunting penalty would have been assessed on the kickoff, but actually put them into a 4th and 16, which they failed to convert, which is just the worst kind of way to lose a game. I think they were down 2 scores, and that brought them to within a score with like 4 minutes to go. So it gave them a shot. And
But the fact that Matt Ryan's like the nicest guy in the NFL, and it was the moment when he was taunting, and then you see him look at the ref, and then he just kind of went like that because he knew what he'd done.
So good. Have you guys enjoyed the season? Because for me, in terms of just the way that every team has kind of conspired to start off badly before coming back, or start off really hot and just regress really badly, it's been so competitive that, you know, the picture hasn't been locked up by week 18. By week 16, only one team are being confirmed in the playoffs. I think it's been one of the best seasons in years, apart from looking at how the Lions have done.
I think aside from the Lions, it's one of the most excited I've been going into a playoffs, because I honestly have no idea who's going to come out on top. You could pull together 4 or 5 teams in each conference realistically that it wouldn't surprise me if they were in it. So
okay, that's a great question actually. So right now, pick your Super Bowl. Don't pick a winner, just pick a Super Bowl. What do you reckon?
Can I go first? Oh.
Yeah, go for
it. Packers, Browns.
Oh no, Browns are eliminated.
Browns are out.
They're gone.
Oh wait, no, I'm on
Bengals.
Bengals. Sorry, Packers, Bengals.
Oh, Packers, Bengals.
I think Joe Burrow. I think he is hot as shit right now, and so is Joe Mixon.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, the wide receiver trio is outstanding, but Jamar Chase is out of this world at the moment.
I've just got a horrible feeling, like a really, really, like, because I agree with Tom, it's been a brilliant season, and I've loved the randomness, and I've loved the crazy wins, but I've just got a horrible feeling it'll be something really crap in the Super Bowl, like Patriots, Cowboys, and but like there'll be just no one to root for, and I'll be just like, because I can't see the Packers getting to the Super Bowl. I just think that they'll come up against the Bucks, or maybe the Cowboys.
Is that like the was it the movie poster for Alien versus Predator that said whoever wins we lose? Because it really feels like that's the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and like no one wants to see the Patriots. But yeah, I mean, if it's something like Chiefs Rams, it's just going to be amazing.
It definitely won't be the Rams. Stafford was dreadful in December. He won those games. He looked bad. He threw so many interceptions, and they weren't even good plays. They were just bad throws. Like, I think he'll maybe win the first round, and then he can finally say, "Hey guys, won a playoff. Now put me in the Hall of Fame." Even though I'm like his biggest fan, I think that will happen. I don't give the Rams any chance whatsoever.
I would love the Bengals to get to the Super Bowl, first of all, because obviously I'd be like insufferably smug, and like Ant and Matt, like they'd just be wanting to just fill me in on every part. So that'd be really funny. But I just can't see Zach Taylor coaching them through the playoffs. Like, some of his play calling has just been so bad, and those like 4th downs, if it hadn't been for that Chiefs penalty, they would have just imploded on Sunday. So I just worry about Zach Taylor. But yeah, the Bengals or the Chiefs, I think, would be amazing for the AFC. But I just think it'll be the Patriots, and I'll just want to choke on my own vomit.
So if the Pats don't get it, I'm all for exciting storylines or quarterback play. And if you look at the other guys in the AFC, I love Josh Allen. Would love the Bills to get there. Chiefs are always going to be interesting. The Chargers, team close to my heart, would love that. See Justin Herbert in there. Raiders, I see it less, but obviously them or the Chargers will go in. Would be interesting after the season they've had. if the Ravens manage to squeak in, getting Lamar Jackson there. So there's all these interesting storylines. I mean, imagine if the Colts got there with Carson Wentz after everything a year ago. So I just think the storylines from the AFC, it could be really, really interesting. And so obviously it will be the Pats who end up there, but you know.
Imagine if San Francisco get in and it's Trey Lance leading them through the playoffs. That's going to be interesting. I know it's boring to go for the 2 number 1 seeds, but I really, really fancy Tennessee, and I fancy Tennessee against Green Bay as well. They've managed to play so well without wide receiver 1, 2, and running back 1 in an offense that runs through running back 1. And even though Derrick Henry's been out, they've run the ball exceptionally well, especially last week. I can't remember even who it was running the ball. But they were really, really good. And Vrabel's a fantastic head coach. If they manage to beat Houston, which is not a given because Houston have managed to give some teams some trouble this year when they had no right to do so. If Tennessee can win that game and lock up the 1, I fancy them. Just go all the way because no team is set up like Tennessee are to run the ball. And no team is set up to defend the run against a team like that. And then when you have A.J. Brown as the WR1 and then you can just rely on Julio Jones to come in at the back end, like, oh my God, like, they're so good. This team cut Josh Reynolds.
I mean, I think Derrick Henry is going to be back. And Derrick Henry running, putting 200 yards on the Packers would just be amazing. I would love that.
See, I've not been impressed at all by Julio Jones. I don't think that was a good trade. I don't think it's worked out that well. I expect, because he's had so many mouths to feed, I don't feel like it was the best place for him to go. But I agree that I still believe that Tannehill is a glorified game manager, but that's all they ask him to do. I'd love to see him win games on his own where they have 0 run offense, because it's not often they have 0 run offense. That's why the Bills struggle, because like Moss and Singletary have sometimes like Dumb and Dumber out there. That 0 run game is my fancy quarterback all year, and he has been dreadful. Like he threw 3 interceptions last week that had 2 rushing touchdowns. I wanted to punch that guy in the face. Like, what are you doing? Like, he pisses me off so bad because he's so frustrated. But then I also think, like, he's one of the best quarterbacks in all of football. And the Bills have got a good defense. They've got 2 of the best safeties in the league. Like, they're a great tandem. I just don't see them getting there, though. But getting Derrick Henry back right now is huge. Like, if he's good to go, if he's actually fully fit and shaking it all off, he's going to go straight back to getting 20, 30 touches a game. Now is the time to run him into the ground and break him, trying to win a Super Bowl.
Quick question for Tom. Do you think the Chargers will get past the Raiders? Because I've stuck a fork in the Raiders about 4 times this season, and they're still fucking here. I mean, I'm just not sure. Like,
I thought the Raiders were dead and buried about 4 weeks ago. The thing is with the Chargers is they can beat anyone and they can lose to anyone. So they've got that feel of someone that could get pumped by the Raiders this weekend. But also, if they do get through it, I could see them getting hot and shocking people. So I don't think they're a team that anyone will want to face in the playoffs, despite the fact that they've lost some dreadful games.
We're talking about moments of the season earlier, Matt. And for me, I'm sure we'll do this in more detail, but the Chargers against the Chiefs shootout, I think it was like 43-38 or something. It's got to be like game of the season, unless something amazing happens in the playoffs. That was just ridiculous.
It reminded me very much of the Rams-Chiefs game like 4 years ago or 3 years ago, whatever. It was a 52-50 game. Yeah, just back and forth all the way with 2 teams just throwing everything at it and it coming off. It was terrific.
And they've just got a lot of exciting players, right? I mean, Derwin James is probably my favorite player in the league. So, but across the board, they just have all these guys that are exciting to watch. You just have no fucking idea what's going to happen. So, I'm here for that. I'm here for the chaos.
Great. We'll have to run a poll. Which player's the rudest? When Aaron Rodgers told them that he fucking owns them, or when Stephon Diggs told those 3 fans to shut the fuck up last week, and everyone heard him because that was hilarious. I thought that was hilarious.
That was good.
Dan has a really good question, actually, which I wanted to get to and I didn't note down. Do you think, you guys, that it's crazy that all of the Week 18 games are not being played at the same time.
So didn't they used to?
Yeah, I think they did. I'm sure they did.
They had 6 o'clock games. They had not the 9 o'clock games in UK time, and they obviously split those depending on divisions. But I thought that division rivals were playing against each other the whole time. And even a couple of years ago, pretty much every game was at 6 or something like that, wasn't it? And then they just had like the odd games later.
Yeah.
It surprised me when I saw there was a Saturday game this year, because I don't remember it being the final week of the season, them having Saturday games.
See, in the NFL, I don't think it makes as much difference because you can't really play for a draw. It's going to be glaringly obvious if you decide to just kneel out overtime or not try and score, you will get done for match fixing. You can't play out a draw if it suits both sides. It doesn't work like that in the NFL, does it? Eventually, someone's going to cave.
Hang on a minute. Match fixing, will they? Because match fixing is some sort of like betting thing, right? But if they just go out there knowing it's in their own interest and one just goes out there and kneels from snap one, the other team not just going to kneel back? Like, this is the whole Colts scenario, isn't it? If the Colts lose to the Jags, then if the Raiders and Chiefs games are tie, then they're both in.
Raiders and Chargers. And that's, I think, Sunday Night Football as well. So imagine that on the biggest stage.
Yeah.
I think the way they've done it, though, in terms of staggering the games, I think they've done it in a way that all of the divisional games are all being played at the same time.
Oh, okay.
So if you look at the schedule, they've kind of done it in blocks, and I don't think like it's particularly advantageous to anyone in terms of how it's done. I think the timing of, I saw an article about it, and I think the timing of the Dallas-Philadelphia game was the only game that was like kind of mildly controversial.
Fair enough.
So if the Colts lose, do then teams playing later then decide to just sit everyone? Like what they're going to do? They're going to drastically change their lineups, aren't they? If they
lose, they're out. So it's only if they still have to win to get in, or they both tie and get in. I think something like this happened 4 or 5 years ago. There was a situation where a tie would get them both teams in, and obviously these guys have no interest in ties or trying to like play the odds. They're not going to trust another team to kneel out. So I think it's kind of a nice storyline that isn't really relevant, because no team is going to try and play out a tie, especially on Sunday Night Football.
I think that one of the other interesting scenarios is the NFC wildcard, because the Saints are 8-8. I mean, again, I've stuck a fork in the Saints many times this season, and somehow they're still in the playoffs. And basically, if they beat the Falcons, then as long as the 49ers don't beat the Rams and the Eagles don't beat the Cowboys, the Saints are in the playoffs, which would be like amazing. So I think that could be like one of the most interesting scenarios. But I think the controversy is that if the Eagles beat the Cowboys on Saturday, it kind of means that those games are kind of meaningless. The other games are meaningless in the NFC.
God, the Saints getting in. The Saints, I think, they're not good. They're in the playoffs. You might not want to play them, but like they are just a look. You just look at their lineup, and I have not been impressed whatsoever by most of the play all year. They've got some pretty fortuitous wins. Like I say, they've been relying on the defense because of that offense. Other than Alvin Kamara, there's just nothing there. They're so one-dimensional.
But they did beat the Packers 38-3 in week 1, which was amazing.
Yeah.
That was the Packers underestimated them, didn't they? They came out cold.
That's a really, really happy memory to end on, I think. 38-3 for the Saints against the Packers. And let's hope that the Lions can do that too. I've already gone through the podcast coming up, so I hope you'll join us on Monday for the Packers at Lions review show. Don't forget as well, join us on the Discord and you can chat with us all the way through the game. Might make an appearance on stream as well. That'd be really cool to see you there. Otherwise, socials, Royal the Lions UK on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram and Twitter. Facebook group Detroit Lions Fans UK 15 Worldwide. Otherwise, Royal the Lions College Football Podcast was yesterday, talking about the remaining bowl games, transfer portal, FCS, FBS Championship games, all that fun stuff. Please do check that out. We also talked semi-recently to Glover Quinn. You might want to check out that interview because it is fantastic. Just remains to me to thank co-host Tom Wilkinson, Brian McCloskey, Stephen Collins. My name's Matthew Turner. We'll see you on Sunday for the final game of the season. Let's go Lions, one pride.
Pride.
Fuck off, Aaron Rodgers.